This is your Sound Off Extra review for WWE Battleground 2017. I am the Solomonster. Hi. This was by far the worst pay-per-view of the year. Now, I know it's only July. Got another, 5 months or so left in the year. A lot can happen in 5 months. But so far, the worst pay-per-view show of the year. And you know, one of my followers on Twitter, he sent me a message during the show. He said, and by the way, this was barely the halfway point of the show. Okay, there was a lot more yet to come. Halfway into this thing, he sends me a tweet saying somebody needs to euthanize Road Dogg after this show. And I said, whew, that's a little rough. But you know what? Now that the pay-per-view is over, he ain't wrong. He ain't wrong. This was garbage. And it's amazing to me because the pay-per-view started off in a pretty promising way. I mean, I'm not talking about the kickoff show. I'm talking about the pay-per-view itself. They had an excellent opening match on this show, and it was downhill from there. So why don't we start with the pre-show here? Now, there's a poll up on my Twitter page, at Solomonster. You can vote. Poll's going to be up for another couple of days. I know not everybody is watching the pay-per-view on Sunday night. Some people watch it the next day. And by the way, if you're listening to this right now and haven't watched the pay-per-view yet, don't. You did not miss much. Do not put yourself through that. But I will read the poll results at the end. And I have a feeling it ain't going to look good. I haven't looked at the poll results yet. So we'll check those out at the end of the review. Let's start with the pre-show here. I got to go match by match through this thing. So we may as well start at the beginning here. The kickoff match was Tye Dillinger against Aiden English. A match we've seen several times before. Surprising finish with Aiden English getting the win with a modified full Nelson slam. They had him hit like a big move or two before the finish, and I wasn't even sure what English's finish was. I thought he hit it, and then Dillinger kicked out, and I said, okay, well, he either just kicked out of the guy's finish or that wasn't his finish. But he kept kicking out, and I'm thinking, okay, well, Dillinger's going to come back and get the win, but never came. Aiden English hit his move, and he got the win. So good for him. Not so much for Tye Dillinger, but in the 3 other matches that these two have had on TV, including there was a kickoff match at the Backlash show, I want to say back in April, Dillinger won. Dillinger won all of the previous matches between the two of them, so if they want this feud to continue, Aiden English had to win at some point. Tonight was as good a night as any. Tonight was like Bizarro night with some of these things, but it's just too bad that this is the best they can come up with for Dillinger. I think Dillinger, I've said this before, can be a solid hand at like the IC US level, and I guess he still could be. It's just something for the two of them to do. In the meantime, not a big deal. And like I said, he's won every other match. You got to throw Aiden English a bone at some point, so good for him. Pay-per-view open with the New Day challenging the Usos for the SmackDown Tag Team titles. This was an excellent match. Lots of false finishes. Too many. I will say that. Too many false finishes. But still a great match. Kofi Kingston, he did a dive out to the ring, outside the ring, I should say. He gets caught by the Usos. Usos pick him up. They powerbomb Kofi on the floor. So he's wiped out. We don't see him for several minutes. Poor Xavier now's on his own. And he's, trying to do his best. It's a 2-on-1 situation. And they did this incredibly well-timed spot where Woods went for the springboard elbow that he does on the ropes from one end of the ring to the other. As he's coming down, Jimmy Uso comes from out of nowhere, off screen, off camera. Boom! Super kick right to the jaw. Very similar to the Shawn Michaels, Shelton Benjamin spot all those years ago back on Raw. Just could not have timed this any better. And then he kicked out. And I thought to myself, how is this not the finish? Well, as it turns out, it wasn't the finish because the Usos weren't winning the match. That's why it wasn't the finish. But Jimmy then put him in a single leg crab. Woods made it to the ropes. Kofi finally comes back into the match. They go back and forth, the two teams here. A few minutes later, Kofi blasted in the face with a super kick. Usos hit the Samoan splash from the top for another near fall. People are chanting this is awesome. Clearly, these four men have been keeping up on the G1. And before somebody makes a snarky comment, I literally think that Xavier, I'm almost sure, is probably watching the G1. I'm not joking when I say that. I'm pretty sure all of these guys have been watching the G1. And it is not unheard of for guys to incorporate, certain elements or moves or whatever into their matches. It's certainly it's happened before, and so I wouldn't be surprised if they try to really go all out here, because we've gotten some pretty damn good wrestling over the last few days. In case you didn't notice, tonight, well, like I said, this match was a lot of fun. In the end, Kofi hits the Trouble in Paradise. Xavier nails the springboard elbow. They get the pin. The New Day are the new SmackDown Tag Team Champions for the very first time. Somebody asked me, does this make them the first team to win the Raw and SmackDown Tag Belts? I'm pretty sure the Usos, if that counts, unless you don't count pre-brand split, but they would probably be the first. And the New Day would be number 2. Hopefully it's not the start of another year-long reign for the New Day. I don't think we need to see that again. I had the Usos winning this. I was surprised to see them take the titles off them. They've been on fire lately. But I assume that this will lead to a rematch at SummerSlam. And you know what? After this, it better. I wouldn't mind seeing this again. So had I known then what I know now, what I would have done is probably just replayed that match about 4 or 5 times. And this would have ended up being a pretty damn good pay-per-view, but I didn't know any better. So then we had Shinsuke Nakamura against Baron Corbin. Philly love Nakamura. One of the few things they seem to love here on this show. Big reaction for his entrance. Match itself, kind of dull. Corbin did hit a pretty cool clothesline spot where he turned Nakamura inside out. Looked like Nakamura's boot smacked Corbin in the back of the head on the way down. Corbin hit the deep 6 for a near fall. Nakamura hit kind of a botched backcracker. Hit an axe kick to the back of Corbin's head. So he's setting up for the Kinshasa. Corbin's just dead. He's laying dead on the mat, not moving a muscle. Nakamura goes over to pick him up, setting him up for what looks like an exploder. Corbin then gives him a blatant low blow. Lifts the leg. Just kills this guy with a low blow. Ref calls for the DQ. Lame finish. Really nothing more to say. You can say, oh, well, it's a heel finish. Well, that may be true. It doesn't make it any less lame. Corbin cracked a smile after the match when they zoomed in on him. He collected his briefcase outside the ring and held it up. I guess the idea being that he's got the contract, and so, he doesn't want to risk injury. He doesn't want to take chances. I don't know. So he took the easy way out. He's a heel. That's what heels do. He did come back to the ring. He hit Nakamura with the briefcase in the gut, laid him out with the end of days. Fine heel work from Corbin. I just, it was a flat finish. I know why they did it, but doesn't make it good. Doesn't make it enjoyable. But not every finish, I guess, is designed to be enjoyable. The match itself, like I said, kind of dull. Fatal 5-way. Elimination match. Charlotte, Becky Lynch, Tamina, Natalya, Lana with Naomi on commentary. The winner will meet Naomi at SummerSlam for the championship. They went almost 10 minutes without an elimination, and then all of a sudden, the eliminations were coming in rapid-fire succession. Tamina saved Lana a couple of times, then got tapped out by Becky Lynch in the disarmor. Becky then immediately tapped out Lana with the disarmor. So back-to-back eliminations for Becky, which was the right thing to do. Get the 2 weak links out of the match first. Truth be told, they never should have been in this match to begin with. Becky got rolled up right away by Natalya, so it came down to Natty and Charlotte. Charlotte went for her picture-perfect moonsault, but Natty got the knees up. She then dropped Charlotte. Charlotte hit the back of her head on the bottom turnbuckle, and that was it. She was knocked loopy, and Natty dragged her into the middle of the ring and pinned her. So Natalya will be getting a women's championship match against Naomi at SummerSlam. Naomi came in. She went for the handshake. Natty stared at her and her glow belt and just walked away. And the announcers played up the fact that Natty is the most experienced woman on the roster. I think it's pretty obvious to me that Carmella cashes in on one of them at SummerSlam and wins the championship. Kevin, and probably, by the way, we'll get a babyface reaction for doing so, given that they're in New York. We had Kevin Owens against AJ Styles for the United States Championship. Hey, I finally got one. I said AJ won the title at MSG. He's going to lose it back to Owens at the pay-per-view, and that's exactly what happened. Given who is involved in this match, I expected more. I guess looking back on this show, this was probably, I mean, this not even probably, this would have been the second best thing on the show after the opener. But I don't know, it was good. It was okay, I guess. I don't know. I was disappointed for what these guys can do. There was a spot near the end where Styles was on the apron setting up for the forearm. Owens slid out of the ring and he tripped Styles. Styles landed right on his shoulder, right on the apron. And so when he went for the Styles Clash a couple of minutes later, he couldn't get Owens up for it. So Owens instead picks him up and literally flings him. Just flings AJ into the referee. He knocks the referee, just wipes him out. Both guys then, they're trading submissions back and forth because that's what you do when you see that the referee is down. You go to get the submission. There were no phantom tap outs. They do that a lot where the ref takes a bump and the babyface gets the submission and the heel just furiously begins tapping out. But there was none of that here. AJ didn't tap. Owens didn't tap. They're trading moves back and forth. Styles had Owens in a crossface when Owens sort of rolled him over into a cover. And the referee, who had recovered by this point, counted 3. And just like that, Kevin Owens is the new United States champion. It looked like AJ's right shoulder was up the entire time, but the referee just didn't see it. He didn't have a good view on it. So I assume they're going to play this up as a controversial finish on Tuesday, and it's going to lead to a rematch at SummerSlam. I would guess maybe a submission match based on what they did here at the end of this match. Just a very weird finish. And a flat finish. People were kind of, I think, waiting for something to happen, maybe for another referee to come out and dispute the finish, or a replay to be shown or something, but nothing happened. Owens collected his title and he walked off. And AJ Styles now has a whopping 1 victory, still on pay-per-view this year, and that was against Shane McMahon, the non-wrestler, at WrestleMania. So here's where things really just took a downturn for me. Up until this point, I would say the show was okay. You had an excellent opener. Corbin and Nakamura, like I said, kind of dull, but there was nothing overly bad about it. The women's match was, it was good. Again, nothing special about it. And even the U.S. title match, it was better than, most of what we got on this show. But even that, I thought, was kind of below expectations. But, we've had plenty of pay-per-views that kind of fall in the middle of the pack, right? Okay, so we get to John Cena and Rusev in a flag match, straight out of 1985. 20 minutes this thing went. It felt more like 3 hours. 20 minutes of my life I can never have back. They changed the rules to where it wasn't just enough to pull down your native flag. They had pedestals up on stage with flag stands, and you had to bring the flag from the ring over to your respective pedestal and place it inside the stand to officially win the match. They have to just always complicate things here. So Rusev retrieved the Bulgarian flag first, so he should have been declared the winner, if not for the stupid rules. Cena immediately gives him the attitude adjustment, puts him in the STF, to absolutely zero reaction because submissions don't count in this match. I guess as part of his strategy, he wanted to, tire Rusev out, but the fans were the ones who were tired, it seemed like, by this point. Cena grabbed Old Glory. Rusev recovered, kicked him in the face. Fast forward, they're by the stage. Okay, Rusev grabs 2 tables from the side, sets them up next to one of the pedestals. You can kind of see where this was going. They keep fighting. Cena ends up in the Accolade, but he powers up to his feet. He powers up to a vertical position, and he somehow he's able to turn it into an attitude adjustment. He's got Rusev on his shoulders. Cena walks up the steps, right up onto the little pedestal that they had there, and he gives Rusev an AA through both tables. Cena grabs the American flag, places it in the flag stand, and he wins the match. John Cena won this match for America. It's too bad America didn't see it because they all fell asleep. This was every Cena-Rusev match that they've had in the past, only with a dumb stipulation attached. The outcome, especially, was really no different than what you would expect. I mean, really, the outcome was never in doubt. If you thought that Rusev had a prayer of winning this match, my advice to you, you might want to ask your doctor to lower the dose on your meds. That would be my advice. We had the Fashion X-Files with Breezango. This was supposed to be the big reveal of who's been trashing Breezango's office for the last several weeks. I thought we were getting a match with them against a mystery team, but there was no match. Instead, the Ascension showed up and claimed responsibility. They said, yeah, we've been the ones that have been trashing your office, and Fandango didn't believe them. He said, you guys weren't even at the show last week. Then he showed them the severed horse head. So ridiculous. But I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say anything because I just did a 10-bell salute on my podcast earlier for a stuffed animal. So this is no more ridiculous than that. And that was on a New Japan show, no less. So even New Japan has some wacky, stuff on that show. But anyway, he shows him the severed head and the Ascension freak out. And I guess this somehow proves that they didn't have anything to do with it. And so they flee. So they leave. And all of a sudden, the lights go out. Tyler Breeze is laid out. Fandango gets laid out. And we see his body because he dropped the flashlight. So the lights are out. We see the flashlight. It shows him being dragged slowly across the floor by a mystery man or men, followed by a to be continued message. So they gave the old bait and switch here. We still don't know who's been trashing their office. No new debuts. Nothing like that. This was still more entertaining than 90% of what we saw on this show. We had Maria's husband against Sami Zayn. Maria stood in the corner. She was trying to stop Sami at one point from giving an exploder to her husband. Boy, it seems like everybody now, we go through these phases, don't we, in WWE, where everyone's doing dives, right? We have a few people who do dives, and all of a sudden everybody is doing dives in their matches. And now it's the exploder. It's like every month or so we have like the new flavor of the month. Now it's the exploder. We have Nakamura doing exploders, Sami Zayn doing exploders. We had Becky Lynch, right? Well, she has a name for it, I think, right? The Bex Plex or whatever the hell she calls it. So he goes for an exploder, but Maria's standing in his way. Maria's in the corner. So as she leaves and the referee is kind of ushering her out of the ring, Sami had his back turned. He turns around. Kanellis goes for his Samoan driver that he used on Sami to beat him on TV last week, but Sami escapes, gives him the exploder anyway. Then he hits the haluva kick and he gets the pin. So Maria's husband, which is, I'm calling him that because that's what the announcers called him. That's his gimmick. He's whipped. Maria's husband loses his very first WWE match, which also coincidentally happens to be only his second WWE match. But I guess this is a way now they each have a win, and so the feud must continue. So now we get to the main event, and by this point, I was so over this show. Again, we hit a point in the show where it was okay, it wasn't great, it was kind of boring, and then the Cena match, and then at that point, I was done. I was just done with this show. But now we had the Punjabi prison match for the WWE Championship, Randy Orton challenging Jinder Mahal. This was the very first Punjabi prison match in 10 years, and I can see why. Hopefully it's another 100 before we get another one of these. That's assuming WWE will even be around 100 years from now. They'll be lucky to be around a year from now if they keep putting on shows like this. So the rules. Here are the rules of the match. You have two structures. Think Kennel from Hell, right? Only it's made of bamboo. You've got two cages, one within the other. They're in the ring. Now there are doors. There's 4 doors, one on each side of the interior cage. When somebody says, open the door, the referee pulls the door up. The door stays up for 60 seconds. If you can't get out of the door in 60 seconds, it slams shut and it never opens again. You're trapped. Once you do get out of the interior cage, you now have to get out of the outer cage, which is even taller. Or maybe they're about the same height. I don't know. I think it might be a little bit taller. Anyway, there are no doors. You have to climb up and out. That's how you get out. Unless you're one of the Singh brothers and you weigh about 50 pounds, then you can fit through one of the little holes in the cage. Like a rat. So those are the rules. Both feet hit the floor, you win the match. And by the way, when it takes your ring announcer more than 30 seconds to explain the rules of the match, you have too many rules. There's a good rule to go by right there. So these guys are wrestling. Nobody gives a shit about any of this. It's quiet. They're starting a CM Punk chant. They started some other chant that I don't even know. I guess it's like a Philadelphia 76ers chant. Who cares? People just were not into what was going on. It was very boring. It was very boring. And I was looking at the clock. I couldn't wait for this thing to be over. I said, they can't possibly be going that long. The pay-per-view's almost 11 o'clock. This will be over soon. Boy, was I wrong. So they failed to escape through 3 of the 4 doors in time. So there's 1 door left. The Singh brothers pop out because they didn't come out with Jinder. They weren't supposed to be out there, but they popped out from underneath the ring. And they help Jinder escape through one of the door, the final door, the 4th door, before it closes shut, trapping Randy Orton on the inside. So Jinder begins climbing the outer structure. And just like any ladder match that you would see in wrestling, when people have to stall for time, he's climbing as slow as he can possibly climb. It looks completely ridiculous. Randy Orton, he climbs out of the inner cage. So now he's looking, he's like, oh man, this guy's going to beat me here. I gotta hurry up. But he's able to basically jump. He didn't really jump, but he basically kind of sticks his leg out, and he manages to climb over to the outer cage. So now he's next to Jinder. They both, they start brawling, they fall down. And at that point, this match just went on and on and on and on. And it would not end. Singh brothers kept holding Randy Orton every time he would try to climb out. Kendo sticks ended up getting involved. I don't know if Jinder pulled one off the cage or if he grabbed one from underneath, but they were beating each other with kendo sticks, and they brought out steel chairs. And the big spot of the match, other than the finish, which I'll get to in a second, was the Randy Orton is on one side where the announcers are, okay? Or at least the, I guess the announcers were ringside on this show. I guess the Raw announcers are the ones that are up by the stage. So he's on the side of the announcers, but he's on the interior, right? So one of the Singh brothers climbs through one of the holes in the cage. So he's on the opposite side. He's technically outside the cage, but he climbs all the way up. And he's trying to stop Randy Orton from climbing out. And you can kind of see where this is going. And they set it up, and they build, and finally Orton punches him in the head. And the Singh brother, I forgot if it was Samir. I think it was Samir. He takes a gigantic bump. This was the Vince McMahon bump from St. Valentine's Day Massacre, where he gets knocked off the side of the cage. He hits the announce table and bounces. It looks like he broke his spine. Hopefully he's okay. It's a big bump. Took a lot of guts. That's about the only good thing I could say about this match. And look, both guys took a beating. Orton especially. He was all cut up. He had blood on his back. He had blood on his arm. He took a beating in there. You got to respect the effort. But that's where it ends. That's about the only good thing I can say about this match. So it goes on and on and on again. Orton beats up the other brother on the inside of the cage. So finally, Randy Orton is about to climb out and over. He's about to put this match to an end, put us all out of our misery. Right? It's almost 10 after 11 at this point. And as he's about to climb out and over, Jinder Mahal's music hits. And I said it out loud as I'm sitting here. I didn't read anything. I didn't know if anybody was there. I don't look at the betting odds. I don't do any of that stuff. As soon as I heard Jinder's music hit and everybody looked to the aisle, I blurted out, "Oh no." Because I knew exactly what that meant. And sure enough, out walks the great Khali. Now, I don't know how many years it's been since he's been out of the company. It's been a number of years. He's in his ring gear, which is really just a pair of black sweatpants. Here comes the great Khali. Orton has this look of terror on his face. I have a look of terror on my face, although for very different reasons. Khali manages to climb up a few steps on the side of the cage. He reaches through, he grabs Orton by the throat, and he begins to choke the life out of him. And he tells Jinder, climb, climb. And Jinder Mahal slowly climbs up out of the cage. And he comes and hits the floor. And Jinder Mahal, with an assist from the great Khali, retains the WWE Championship. And Jinder and Kali, they hug, they embrace, they hold up the title, they celebrate to end the show. Almost half an hour this thing went. Almost 30 minutes. Coming off the 20-minute flag match. This was atrocious. This was as bad of a main event as you will find probably on any pay-per-view all year, because WWE tends to have pretty good pay-per-view main events, if nothing else. You're going to be hard-pressed to find one worse than this. Unless if you were not a fan of Goldberg beating Kevin Owens in 90 seconds, you probably would vote for the Fastlane main event. I had one person on Twitter say to me, Fastlane was worse. This is not the worst pay-per-view of the... I went back and I looked at the Fastlane card, because I don't even remember what happened 2 weeks ago, let alone what happened in February. I went back and I looked. That's a pretty good show on paper. I don't know what my overall opinion of the show was. But you had Samoa Joe against Sami Zayn. You had Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman, who always have good matches. There's no way Fastlane was a worse show than this. This was garbage. This was a terrible pay-per-view. And it might be fine now. Oh, the network, $9.99. You get all these shows for free. I mean, yeah, I'd be tremendously pissed off if I paid $60 for this show. I would call the cable company and demand a refund. So thank God we don't have to pay $50 for these pay-per-views anymore. But this is a pay-per-view. This is supposed to be, a special event, a big event. And this is what they gave us. And I'm not going to sit here and talk, the G1 and everything else. I mean, I could say that because I've seen a lot of great wrestling this week. I've seen a lot of great pro wrestling this week. And it does bother me personally that I had to sit through this after sitting through all those shows. But I'm not even gonna use that as an excuse. Forget New Japan, forget Ring of Honor, forget GFW, forget everything else. Let's pretend WWE is the only game in town. They should be embarrassed by this show. They should be ashamed by what they put out tonight. This was awful. Now, let's take a look at the poll. This is going to be fun. Let's take a look at the Twitter poll. And again, if you want to vote, poll's up right now at Solomonster on Twitter. 22% thumbs up, 78% thumbs down. And we have over 1,300 votes already and counting. That's actually not as bad as I thought it would be and not as bad as it should be. But I think as the hours tick away, that's going to become even more lopsided than it is now. But 22 up, 78 down is nothing to be happy about here. They should be embarrassed. They should be ashamed of the show that they put out tonight. And to think that, it's amazing to me to think of where SmackDown was just a few months ago. And to look at a pay-per-view like this, coming from that same brand, from that same show, just a few months later. It's like night and day. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to account for that. Was it a change in writers? Is it Road Dogg? Is it something else? I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know who's responsible. Well, we know who's responsible for it. I mean, the buck stops with one person. But whatever it is, boy, SmackDown has had quite the fall from grace if we're going to start to get shows like this. And I don't want to hear, it's just they had to fill time or whatever to get to SummerSlam. SummerSlam will be better. That's not the point. You have a pay-per-view, you put your best foot forward. That's what pay-per-views are. I don't care if it's the network era or not. This is supposed to be the best of the best, the cream of the crop on SmackDown Live. I mean, this was garbage. Save for that opening match, this was garbage. This was just a dull, boring show. I mean, I'm not even, individually, you go match by match. It's not even a case where it was worst match of the year, worst match of the year, worst match of the year. You could say that maybe for one or two of them or three of them, but it's just collectively, as the show went on, especially from the halfway point on, and when the show is over, I look back and I say, man, this was such a dull, lifeless show. And it's hard to bring myself to care about anything that is going on this brand right now. And to see, it's almost like a reversal of fortune in just the last month or two between Raw and SmackDown. Not to say that Raw is so great, but Raw was the show that was getting torn to shreds and was practically unwatchable just a few months ago. At least with Raw now, it gets more thumbs up than thumbs down, and I could find things here and there that I really like and am into about it. In terms of the main event scene, and I can't say the same for SmackDown right now, but this was embarrassing. And the fact that, you end your show with all things of the Great Khali. The Great Khali. What year is this? Where am I? It's like 2007, 2008, all over again. That was 10 years ago. There's a reason the Punjabi prison hasn't been around in 10 years. Leave it in the past. You had a good thing going on this show. What the hell happened? So yeah, I hope SummerSlam's a good show. I sure hope so. You would think SummerSlam is the culmination of a bunch of big feuds. It's inter-brand, Raw and SmackDown. Yeah, they should have a hot crowd in Brooklyn. All the pieces are there for SummerSlam to be a good show. It can't possibly be any worse than this. It would be impossible for SummerSlam to be a worse show than what we got tonight. This was embarrassing. That's my thought on Battleground overall 2017. Feel free to agree, disagree. Tell me why I'm wrong. Leave comments in the section down below. Hit the subscribe button on this channel if you have not already done so. And don't forget to download the full podcast. They go up every Sunday on the Solomonster.com, thesolomonster.com, Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play. And that's it. I'm all out. I got nothing else to say about this show. The less said, the better. I've already gone on for too long about this show. So I'm out of here. I'm going to try to forget that this show ever happened. And I'll see you back here for the full Sound Off podcast next weekend and a brand new extra on the channel real soon. So until then, take care, guys.